My parents stole my entire savings to help my sister buy a new car while I struggled alone, so I cut them off and everything collapsed for them. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I was the child my parents relied on without ever really celebrating. I was the one they called when something broke, when paperwork needed sorting, when stress filled the house and someone had to stay calm. They didn't say thank you much. They didn't need to. I was the responsible one, and that label followed me everywhere. My sister, on the other hand, was treated like glass. She was emotional, fragile, and constantly protected from consequences. If she cried, plans changed. If she failed, excuses were made. I learned early that my role was to absorb pressure quietly so she didn't have to. When I complained once, my mom sighed and said, "You're stronger than her. You can handle it." So I did. Growing up, my parents praised me for being low maintenance. Teachers liked me. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't ask for much. Somewhere along the way, that praise turned into invisibility. If I struggled, it went unnoticed. If I succeeded, it was expected. Help was something other people needed. I started working part-time as soon as I legally could. The smell of grease, the hum of late-night shifts, the ache in my legs after school, it all felt worth it when I watched my savings slowly grow. Every dollar I tucked away made me feel safer. Independent. Proud. I told myself I didn't need anyone. My parents framed everything as fair. "Your sister has it harder emotionally," my dad would say. "You're built different." They said it like a compliment. I believed them. At family dinners, I watched my sister be comforted while I was asked to help clear plates. I didn't resent her. I trusted my parents. I truly believed that if I kept being dependable, if I kept carrying weight without complaint, respect would come eventually. I didn't know yet that responsibility, in my family, wasn't something you were rewarded for. It was something they would quietly take for granted. By the time I hit my early 20s, saving money had become more than a habit, it was my way of feeling in control. I didn't come from much, and I never expected help, so every dollar I earned felt like proof that I could take care of myself. While friends spent their paychecks on trips, nights out, or new gadgets, I watched my bank balance instead. It felt grounding. Quietly powerful. I skipped vacations without telling anyone. I drove an old car that rattled when it started. I bought generic groceries and wore the same jackets year after year. Late at night, after work, I'd sit on my bed and check my savings account, the blue glow of my phone lighting up the room. Seeing that number slowly rise gave me a sense of safety I never got at home. My parents knew about it. They'd mention it casually, almost proudly, to relatives. "He's so disciplined," my mom would say. Always thinking ahead. My dad once joked, "If we ever need advice, we'll ask you." Those moments made me feel seen, like maybe they respected me after all. They even reassured me sometimes. "That's your money," my mom told me more than once. "We'd never touch it. You earned it." I believed her without hesitation. Why wouldn't I? They were my parents. Meanwhile, my sister struggled with money constantly. Or at least, that's how it was framed. She spent freely, upgraded her phone every year, ate out whenever she wanted, and still complained about being broke. If I noticed the contradiction, I kept it to myself. That wasn't my place. In my mind, my savings weren't about being rich. They were about stability. A buffer. Proof that I wouldn't end up desperate or dependent. I thought that if something ever went wrong, at least I'd have this. What I didn't realize was how visible that safety net was to everyone else, and how little "that's your money" would end up meaning when someone else decided they needed it more. The first time my sister mentioned her car, it sounded casual. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the air thick with the smell of coffee and burnt toast, when she sighed dramatically and said, "I don't know how much longer this thing is going to last." My mom immediately looked concerned, like she'd just heard a medical diagnosis. Over the next few weeks, it turned into a full-blown crisis. Every family conversation somehow circled back to her car. It was unsafe. It was unreliable. She claimed it stalled at stoplights and made strange noises, though I'd seen it run just fine. My parents listened with furrowed brows, nodding along like she was describing a life-threatening emergency. "She can't be stranded," my dad said one night. "That would be dangerous." "She's already stressed enough," my mom added, rubbing her temples. "She needs something dependable." I suggested cheaper options. Repairs. A used car. Maybe even saving for a bit. The room went quiet. My sister's eyes filled with tears instantly, like I'd accused her of something cruel. "You don't understand," she snapped. "I'm barely holding it together." After that, no one asked my opinion. Plans started forming in hushed conversations I wasn't included in. I noticed my parents whispering in the living room, stopping when I walked in. My mom started making comments like, "Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for family," always looking past me, never at me. What stood out most was that no one asked me for money. Not once. I remember feeling relieved, even smug about it. I thought, at least they know that would cross a line. I trusted that boundary completely. I went back to my routine, to work and saving and keeping my head down. I told myself I was being paranoid. Families handle things internally, right? I had no idea that while I was reassuring myself, a decision had already been made, one that would change how I saw my parents forever. It happened on a random weeknight, the kind where nothing feels important until it suddenly is. I was sitting on my bed, still in my work clothes, scrolling mindlessly before sleep. Out of habit, I opened my banking app. I did it almost every night, the same quiet ritual that usually calmed me down. The number on the screen didn't make sense. At first, I thought the app hadn't loaded properly. I refreshed it. Logged out. Logged back in. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The balance I'd spent years building was almost gone. Not slowly chipped away. Not reduced by bills. Just gone. One massive withdrawal staring back at me in cold, unforgiving digits. My hands started shaking. I remember whispering, "No, no, no," like that might fix it. I checked the transaction history again and again, hoping I'd misread it. But the date was recent. The amount was exact. This wasn't fraud from some stranger online. This was deliberate. I barely slept that night. My mind spiraled through every worst-case scenario. Had my account been hacked? Was there some mistake at the bank? By morning, my stomach felt hollow, like I'd swallowed ice. I went straight to my parents' house after work, still trying to convince myself there had to be a logical explanation. When I walked in, the house smelled like dinner, normal and warm, which somehow made everything feel more surreal. I blurted it out without sitting down. "There's money missing from my account." My mom looked up slowly. Too calmly. My dad didn't even seem surprised. I started talking fast, explaining the amount, the date, how it had to be an error. My voice cracked despite my effort to stay composed. That's when my dad said, evenly, "Sit down. We need to talk." No confusion. No shock. Just that sentence. My chest tightened. In that moment, before anyone explained anything, I felt something shift deep inside me. A realization I didn't want to accept yet, but one that made my skin go cold as I waited for them to speak. My mom was the first to speak, her voice soft in that careful way she used when she thought I was being unreasonable. "We didn't want to stress you out," she said, folding her hands together like this was a minor misunderstanding. My dad nodded beside her, staring at the floor. No one denied it. No one apologized. They told me they'd transferred my savings to help my sister buy a new car. Just like that. Years of work, gone in a sentence. I remember laughing once, short and hollow, because I honestly thought they were about to say it was temporary. Alone. Something they'd talk through with me. But my mom kept going. She needed something safe. Reliable. You know how emotional she is." Then she looked at me and added, "You're stronger. You'll bounce back." The room felt smaller. I asked when they planned to pay me back, trying to keep my voice steady. My dad finally met my eyes and shrugged. "We figured you'd understand," he said. "Money comes and goes." That's when my sister walked in from the driveway. I heard the crunch of gravel, the slam of a car door I'd never heard before. She stood there holding new keys, refusing to look at me. The smell of new leather drifted in behind her. I didn't need to see the car to know it was already done. I asked again, slower this time. "So there's a plan to repay me?" My mom sighed, irritated now. "Why are you being so dramatic?" she said. "You don't have kids. You don't have real responsibilities yet." That was the moment it hit me, the midpoint where everything shifted. They hadn't borrowed my money. They'd claimed it. In their minds, it was already justified, already gone, already not mine. I stood there, heart pounding, realizing the safety I'd built wasn't just taken, it was dismissed. And as I looked at my sister gripping those keys like a trophy, I understood something terrifying. They didn't think they'd done anything wrong. The reality didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, through small moments that added up to panic. A bill I normally wouldn't think twice about suddenly felt heavier. My rent notification popped up on my phone, and for the first time, I didn't feel prepared. I kept opening my banking app out of habit, like the money might magically reappear if I checked often enough. I tried to be calm. Logical. I went back to my parents a few days later and explained what losing my savings actually meant for me. "I'm not asking for everything back right now," I said, forcing myself to sound reasonable. "Just some of it. Enough to get stable again." My voice shook despite my effort to keep it steady. My mom frowned like I'd disappointed her. "You're overreacting," she said. "You always land on your feet." My dad crossed his arms and added, "This is why you shouldn't obsess over money." That sentence broke something in me. I reminded them that this wasn't extra cash, it was my emergency fund. My safety net. My dad sighed, annoyed. "You're acting like we ruined your life," he said. "Meanwhile, your sister finally has some peace of mind." When I brought up repayment again, my mom's tone hardened. "We don't have that kind of money just sitting around," she snapped. "And honestly, asking us to choose between you and her is selfish." Selfish. The word echoed in my head. Later, my sister texted me. "You'll be fine," she wrote. "You always are. Don't make this a big deal." I stared at the screen, my chest tight, realizing she truly believed that. That my struggle was temporary noise compared to her comfort. That night, I lay awake listening to the hum of traffic outside my window, calculating numbers over and over in my head. I felt stupid for trusting them. Angry at myself for not protecting what was mine. And underneath it all, something worse settled in, an understanding that when I finally needed help, the people I'd always shown up for had already decided I wasn't worth choosing. After that, the story started changing, but not in my favor. I didn't even realize it at first. It began with small comments, things said just loud enough for me to hear. My mom mentioned to an aunt that I was stressed about money again. My dad joked to a cousin that I'd always been a little intense about finances. They smiled when they said it, like it was harmless. Then the calls started. Relatives I barely spoke to suddenly felt comfortable weighing in on my life. "Your parents did what they had to do," one of them told me. "Family helps family." Another said, "Money comes back. Relationships don't." Every conversation left me feeling smaller, more confused, like I was the problem for being hurt. When I confronted my parents, my mom looked genuinely offended. "Why are you dragging other people into this?" she asked. "You're embarrassing us." I told her I hadn't said anything, because I hadn't. She shook her head slowly. "See? This is what I mean. You're so defensive lately." I started questioning my own memory. My own reactions. I'd replay the conversation in my head, wondering if I really was being dramatic. If maybe I should just let it go. That thought terrified me almost as much as losing the money. Meanwhile, my sister leaned into the role they'd carved out for her. She posted photos with the new car, smiling, captions about fresh starts and self-care. Every like felt like a slap. When I muted her, my mom noticed immediately. "Why are you punishing her?" she demanded. Punishing her? For what she'd taken. At night, the house felt louder somehow. Every sound grated on my nerves. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd wake up with my jaw clenched, my chest tight, my mind racing with arguments I never won. They weren't just taking my money. They were rewriting reality. And the worst part was how easily they convinced everyone else, and almost convinced me, that I was the unreasonable one for finally saying I was hurt. Things unraveled faster than I expected. One missed paycheck, one unexpected expense, and suddenly the margin I'd always relied on was gone. I remember standing in a grocery store aisle, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, staring at prices like they were written in another language. I put things back into the freezer with shaky hands, meat first, then anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. At home, the apartment felt colder, even though nothing had changed. I stopped turning lights on unless I had to. I'd sit in the dark, listening to the refrigerator hum, counting numbers in my head that never worked out. Rent was due. Utilities were due. My chest felt tight all the time, like I couldn't get a full breath. I finally swallowed my pride and asked a friend if I could borrow a little money. Just enough to get through the month. Saying the words out loud burned. I'd never needed to do that before. I'd always been the reliable one, the guy who had it together. Hanging up that call, I felt hollow. What made it worse was seeing my sister thrive. She drove past my place once, windows down, music blasting, waving like nothing was wrong. Later that night, she posted another picture with the car, captioned grateful. I stared at it until my eyes hurt. I went back to my parents one last time, desperate. I told them I was struggling. Really struggling. My mom looked annoyed, not concerned. "This is what adulthood is," she said. "You can't expect us to fix everything." My dad nodded. "Maybe this will teach you not to rely on money so much." Teach me. I left their house feeling numb. Sitting in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, I realized something terrifying. I had lost my savings, my sense of safety, and my faith in my family, all at once. That night, lying awake with tears silently soaking into my pillow, I understood I was completely alone. And if I didn't change something soon, this was only going to get worse. The decision didn't come with a dramatic moment or a big speech. It came quietly, in the early hours of the morning, when I realized my anxiety only spiked when my phone buzzed with their names. Every message from my parents left my stomach twisted. Every interaction reopened the same wound. I couldn't keep bleeding like this and still function. So I stopped reaching out. At first, it felt wrong. I'd been trained my entire life to stay connected, to show up, to be available no matter what. Ignoring a call from my mom made my hands sweat. I'd stare at the screen until it went silent, my heart racing like I'd done something unforgivable. Guilt wrapped itself around me like a chokehold. But something else crept in too, relief. I changed my passwords. Every account. Banking, email, anything they'd ever helped me set up. Sitting at my desk, the soft click of the keyboard felt strangely empowering. I rerouted my mail, double-checked my credit, locked everything down. For the first time, I was protecting myself instead of trusting blindly. My parents noticed within days. My mom left voicemails that sounded confused at first. "Are you okay?" Then irritated. "You're being childish." My dad texted, "You can't just disappear." I didn't respond. My sister, meanwhile, laughed it off. She told a cousin I was having one of my phases. She was sure I'd come back. I always did. I always folded. But this time felt different. In the quiet of my apartment, with no one demanding anything from me, my thoughts finally slowed. The guilt was still there, heavy and suffocating, but underneath it was a calm I hadn't felt in years. I didn't know what would happen next. I only knew I couldn't survive if I kept letting them treat me like I was disposable. And as my phone lit up again with another missed call, I realized my silence was about to force them to face something they'd avoided for a very long time. It didn't take long for things to start unraveling on their end. I'd never announced how much I handled for them, because it was always framed as just helping out. But my absence made everything painfully visible. Bills that had quietly been paid on time suddenly weren't. Appointments got missed. Paperwork piled up unanswered. My mom called me in a panic one afternoon, her voice sharp and frantic. "The electricity bill is past due," she said, like this was somehow my fault. I didn't answer. Later, my dad left a voicemail asking if I'd accidentally stopped covering a subscription and insurance payment. Accidentally. As if I'd simply forgotten my role. I found out through a relative that my parents were scrambling. Late fees were stacking up. My dad had to leave work early to deal with things I used to handle. The calm authority he always carried was cracking. And the most telling part? My sister wasn't stepping in. She had excuses. She was too overwhelmed. She didn't understand finances. She couldn't deal with stress right now. The same words my parents had used on me for years, now thrown back at them. Except this time, there was no backup. My mom started sending longer messages, swinging wildly between guilt and panic. "We don't know what we did to deserve this," she wrote. "Families don't abandon each other." My dad tried a different angle, warning me that I'd regret this distance someday. I listened to the voicemails without responding, my chest tight but steady. Part of me wanted to rush in and fix everything like I always had. Another part of me, the part that had finally learned the cost, stayed still. For the first time, they were feeling what it was like to lose a safety net. And as their carefully balanced system began to collapse, I knew the pressure they were under would only grow, until they were forced to confront the damage they'd done. The tone of the messages changed after that. Panic turned into desperation, and desperation turned into something that sounded almost like remorse. Almost. My mom started leaving voicemails late at night, her voice shaking. "We're your parents," she said. "We didn't think you'd really turn your back on us." The words were heavy with accusation, not understanding. My dad called next, his voice low and controlled in the way it always was when he wanted to sound reasonable. "We made a mistake," he admitted. "But you're blowing it out of proportion." That sentence summed up everything. A mistake. Not a betrayal. Not a choice. Just an unfortunate accident I was supposed to forgive. They asked to meet. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat at the same kitchen table where this all started. The air felt tense, stale. My mom cried almost immediately, saying they'd been under a lot of stress and didn't think I'd react this strongly. My dad explained that they'd assumed I'd recover faster than they had. I asked them one simple question. "Do you understand why what you did was wrong?" They exchanged a look. My mom said, "We were just trying to help your sister." My dad added, "Any parent would." That was their answer. When I brought up repayment again, my mom snapped, wiping her tears. "You're still on about the money?" My sister wasn't there. She hadn't bothered to come. That was when the blame shifted fully onto me. I was called unforgiving. Cold. Disloyal. They said I was tearing the family apart over something temporary. I stood up, hands trembling, heart racing, realizing they weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry it had consequences. And as I walked out, ignoring my mom's sobs and my dad's warnings, I knew this conversation had changed everything, because it confirmed I could never go back. Walking out of that house felt different than every other time I'd left. There was no adrenaline, no shaking panic. Just a strange, steady quiet. The evening air was cool against my face, and for the first time in months, my chest didn't feel tight. I sat in my car for a long moment, hands resting on the steering wheel, and realized I wasn't second-guessing myself anymore. The weeks that followed weren't easy. I didn't suddenly become financially comfortable or emotionally healed. I rebuilt slowly, extra shifts, strict budgeting, saying no to things I wanted but didn't need. But the stress felt different. It was honest stress, not the kind that comes from being betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you. I stopped checking my phone obsessively. I stopped bracing myself for guilt-filled messages. When my mom sent a long text about family traditions and how much they missed me, I read it once and didn't reply. My dad tried calling a few times, then less often. Eventually, the silence settled in on both sides. Through relatives, I heard how things turned out. Bills kept piling up. Arguments became constant. My sister never stepped up the way they always insisted she would. Without me quietly holding everything together, their reality cracked. And for once, it wasn't my job to fix it. What surprised me most was the peace. I'd always been told that cutting off family would destroy me. That I'd regret it forever. But instead, I started sleeping through the night. I laughed more. I felt lighter, like I wasn't carrying a weight that had never been mine to begin with. I still grieve the family I thought I had. That part hurts. But I no longer grieve the version of myself who stayed silent and sacrificed everything to be the responsible one. Walking away didn't make me cruel. It made me free. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough.